You were not meant to be a slave to the grind. You were not meant to trade your life force for money. You can escape gravity. You can unlock your life. You got this. Let's go.
Hello and welcome to Unlock Your Life. I'm your host, Jennings Smith. Got a great show because we're going to be talking about interest rates. We're going to be talking about the economic uncertainty that we find ourselves in. What's going to happen over the next 6 months, year? Are rates going to go up? Are they going to go down? What can we look forward to? What should we be doing to position ourselves? More importantly, what's the main thing that we should not be doing? I'm going to break that down and share some lessons that I've learned, as well as other people in my industry that are in trouble coming to me. And that brings me to my first story. I want to tell you about Jackson. So Jackson is a house flipper, and he's got a house that he bought for about $100,000, and it needed work, no problem. The market's hot, we're going up, and Jackson's renovated this house, put the money, on credit cards, taken a hard money loan. And usually a hard money loan for house flippers is a very short timeline. We're talking 3 months, 6 months to do some cosmetic repairs and turn the property around, get it back on the market, get it sold, pay off the hard money lender. A hard money lender is a high interest loan and it's high pressure, right? Because the timeline is so short on those things. Here's what's happened. He bought the house, he fixed the house up, he's put the house on the market, he's gone under contract, it's not appraising, buyers are backing out, they're not able to buy as much as they used to be able to buy, right? Because as the rates go up, their buying power decreases. That mortgage payment of $1,500 that used to cover, $200,000, now it only covers $150,000 or $120,000. So those rates going up are making the price just not as attractive because a lot of people are buying on payments, especially at that price point. They're very price sensitive to what is my monthly payment. They're not paying cash. A lot of times they have very little down. And so his question was, what do I do? The hard money loan is expiring. I've already extended. They won't let me extend anymore. I'm going to lose this house. I want to refinance it with a regular bank, but a regular bank isn't going to give me enough to pay off the hard money lender because the appraisal prices have fallen so far. What do I do in this situation? And so my advice to Jackson was to get the refinance done, right? Go to the bank and maybe they can't give you $100,000 in cash out, but they can give you $80,000 in cash out proceeds. Pay the hard money lender off that and then do some agreement where you're going to pay them the other $20,000 you owe them over the next year or two, right? Work on your credit cards, pay them down over time. Maybe you even work a deal with your credit card company. Hey, I can't pay it. I got in a jam here. Can we work out a payment plan? And if you can hold that property, you're going to be okay, right? That's what I was trying to help him understand was if you dump this property right now, let's just say you throw your hands in the air, tell the hard money lender to take the house back. One, you're going to owe $30,000 on your credit card still. So you're either going to have to pay that off or it's going to destroy your credit. Secondly, you're going to have a massive black mark because you defaulted on a mortgage. Now this hard money lender's got to take the house, which they don't want to do. They've got to try and resell it. They're going to lose money. They're not going to ever lend you money again. And they're going to tell every other hard money lender, hey, this dude defaulted on his hard money loan. And so that on top of you didn't make it right, you didn't do what you said you were going to do. So I counseled him to try to get a regular loan, 5-year mortgage, to get as much of that hard money off of his plate as he can and work with the hard money lender to say, look, I can get you 80 of your 100K back. The other 20, we're going to set up a payment plan, work with me. And they probably will work with him because they don't want to take that house back. They don't want to foreclose and repossess and then them try to disposition the house. They're going to lose money. So they're incentivized to work with him. But here's the cool thing is if he holds it in 3 years, 2 years, 4 years, 5 years, who knows? But I promise real estate is very forgiving, and given enough time, that house will probably be worth 130, 150, 180, 200. I'm not sure where it'll go, but he's going to be able to pay off that initial mortgage, pay off his credit cards, and actually make money. he can rent it, right? He can rent it right now and cover his costs, cover his loan, cover his expenses, and tread water. He's not going to make a lot of cash flow, but he'll be able to make it through this scrape. And so that was the advice that I gave, but it got me thinking, wow, a lot of people are getting into this situation. Probably, more than likely, house flippers, fix and flippers, people that are in the single family world. It's getting a little more difficult to move property. But also this is affecting multifamily. That's what I specialize in, is multifamily and commercial real estate, self-storage, this sort of thing. And so what are rates doing? How does that affect us? And how do we protect ourselves so that we don't get into a jam like Jackson? What can we do? So one theory is I'm going to sit on the fence, right? I'm going to wait for prices to just fall off a cliff. We've got Armageddon coming. Armageddon's coming. Rates are going to be going to 10, 12, 15% possibly. We're talking massive waves of foreclosures, commercial properties, Lehman Brothers, 2008, 2009, all over again. This is what a lot of talking heads are saying, and I get why they're saying it, right? Eyeballs are currency. Attention is currency. These people, these news outlets, these influencers, they want attention and they want to get you to pay attention. And the easiest way to do that is to tell you there's a massive looming threat that you don't know about and you better pay attention to me. And only I know and have the inside information. And they're trying to spoon feed you this stuff without actually having you think for yourself. And so my opinion of what's going to happen over the next year or so is a lot less doom and gloom. And it's not as sensational, and I probably won't get as many eyeballs around it, but it's the truth. And that's what I want to tell you, what I believe in. And you know what? Who knows what's exactly going to happen? But here's the facts. I read an article the other day, 97% of homeowners refinanced in the last 3 to 4 years. Rates were crazy low. We're talking you could get 30-year mortgages, 2.5%, 3.5% interest, 30-year term, 30-year amortization, fixed rate. That means you have 30 years to pay it off. That rate will never go up, can't go up if you pay that thing on time and the bank doesn't foreclose on you. And so you're talking about being in a very nice house. Maybe you bought this house, maybe you refinanced your current house, and you have a phenomenal payment. You have a phenomenal mortgage. You got your debt super, super cheap. So why are you going to be like, oh, wow, look, house values are going down. I better sell my house and I'm going to sell it at a loss and I'm going to go jump into an expensive rental, or I'm going to go and buy another house. But you know what? I can only afford half as much house because the rates are twice as high. That makes no sense. Why would people do that? If 97% of American homeowners are in a great 30-year low rate fixed debt mortgage, why would they jump into the fire? Now, yes, absolutely, there are people that have to move, right? Maybe they're in the military, maybe their job is moving them, maybe their mother died and they got to sell the house, whatever it is. There's always reasons why people will move, and that will generate buying opportunities for sure. But when I'm talking about mass panic, when I'm talking about mass defaults, like we saw in 2008, 9, and 10, this was people that had no equity, right? They didn't have any equity. So maybe we're in the same situation. Maybe they don't have any equity in their current house because the values have come way down. But that wasn't why that they defaulted and walked away. The reason that they walked away was, one, they never could afford that payment. Those loans were never pre-qualified correctly. They weren't looking at their income. They weren't looking properly at their cash flow, and they never could afford those homes. They were given, they called them liar loans, stated income loans. You could essentially tell the banker, I make $400,000 a year. And he would say, okay, you make $400,000 a year. No work history, no tax returns, no bank statements, no nothing. Just, it's called a liar loan because people lied. They weren't real loans, but they were backed by the federal government. They were bought up in these massive tranches, and the loan broker got his commission and never took on any of the risk of the default of that loan. So they were very incentivized to push these loans through and just do volume and volume and volume. and get $1,000 or $1,500 a loan, and they don't care if they default or not because they aren't stuck with the bill at the end of the day. And we all saw how that ended. So one, those people never could afford those mortgages. And then secondly, a lot of those defaulted loans were variable rates, right? They were moving with the market. And so the payment, when it got too high, right, they had a little grace period or a really low introductory rate. And when the rate rebalanced, ARM, adjustable rate mortgage, the payment jumped up and the escrows jumped up and the insurance jumped up and they could not afford the payment again. And now they're looking at, I can't afford the payment. I really never could. I don't have any equity in this house. I was doing this because I thought it was going to keep going up in value and I could flip it and make money. Now that's not going to happen. I didn't put in much money down or any money down. Bye. I'm walking. And they walked in droves. Hundreds of thousands of defaults. We are not in that same scenario. And I think a lot of people have PTSD and they like to be the talking head proclaiming that we're on the precipice and brink of disaster. Is inflation a problem right now? Yeah, sure. 8%, 9%, not great. But look at the rest of the world. I mean, our dollar is categorically stronger against all of the currencies than I think it ever has been. I've never seen in my lifetime, the pound and the euro and the Swiss franc and the yen at the price points that there are against the dollar. So the dollar is super strong, and I believe that they will get a handle on inflation for now. Yes, all fiat currencies at some time do end up failing. I know that at some point we will have to reorganize our debt, and there's going to be a large, probably cataclysmic event. I don't know when that's going to be or if that's ever going to be, maybe in the future, but I don't think it's right now. So I'm not proclaiming that there's this massive precipice that's 6 months, a year out. And so if you're sitting on the sidelines thinking, this is what's coming, and I'm not going to do anything until that happens. I'm just going to sit on my cash, sit on my hands. I'm going to bide my time. I'm going to be so smart, and I'm going to buy at the very bottom of the market. Okay, well, here's the thing. Looking back, hindsight, it's always 2020. Looking back in 2010, it's easy to say, why didn't I buy more real estate? Real estate was so cheap. I could have bought a house for $100,000 that's worth $250 now. What was I thinking? I should have bought as much real estate as I could, but I didn't. You didn't because you were scared. You didn't because you didn't know what 2011 was going to hold. And 2012, are we going to go further? Are we ever going to get out of this? It wasn't so clear as it is now that that's 10 years in the rearview mirror. It's super easy to make these predictions as to what you could have done and should have done and maybe possibly might have done if you could do it over again. So sitting on your hands, burying your head in the sand and saying, I'm waiting for a massive cataclysmic event where I know we're at the bottom and that's what I'm going to buy, I don't think that's the best strategy. That's not the strategy that I'm following. The strategy that I'm following is buy good deals. I'm not paying retail, but I'm still looking for deals. And sellers are definitely becoming more reasonable right now. They're becoming more reasonable, and maybe they'll become more reasonable in the future, right? If I waited out 6 months, maybe I could get it for cheaper. Maybe not. Maybe somebody else would have bought it by then. Maybe I'm passing up opportunity after opportunity. My thought is if the deal works, right? If the deal matches my underwriting, where I can refinance out of it in 2 years and get my capital back out, where I can be all in for 65 to 75% of retail value, where there's a true value add play, where it cash flows, then why would I not buy that deal? Why would I sit on the sidelines and wait? Because look at the charts of real estate historically. If you had bought in the peak, 2006, 7, 4, 5, 6 years later, you would have been even again. And now you've been up 100%. You'd be looking extremely smart. And so even the worst investors in real estate, people that were buying at the tops, still made out just fine as long as they had that time horizon. It's the ones that got jammed up that had to buy high and sell low were the ones that were taking those massive losses. So continue to buy, continue to look for those deals, and they're going to become easier and easier. And here's a couple strategies that I'm implementing that I think you could implement to continue to buy real estate. So the first thing I'm doing is I'm looking harder at assumption loans. Assumption loans is where you're taking on the debt of the prior person. This is kind of foreign in single family. People don't really talk about it, although it is possible to do it. It's very common in commercial space. So let's say you have a $4 million property that you bought 4 or 5 years ago for $3 million, and you got a $2 million loan, and your loan is great. It's 4% interest. It's a 30-year amortization. You still have 6 or 7 years left of term on the loan. That's a great loan that I want to take. However, it's only 50% leverage, right? I'm buying it for $4 million. I'm only assuming a $2 million loan. I've got to bring $2 million in cash to that deal. That's not really very good for making a good return for me or my investors. And so assuming a loan can be good, and you compare it with, will the seller help you out? Will the seller carry some of that debt? Will the seller, maybe they'll loan you $1 million and now you have 75% leverage, right? You have $2 million of assumption debt, and you have a $1 million private money loan between you and the seller, and you bring $1 million in cash to the table, 25% down, which is pretty standard. And now you have a great rate and you have a great term, and the seller got the price that they wanted, and you're off to the races. Could you have gotten it for $3.5 million, $3.7 million if you'd waited another year or so? Maybe, maybe not. But if I can buy things that cash flow, that are safe, that fit my buy box, I'm going to continue to press forward and do that, because here's what could be ahead. You have two options, and I'm going to show you a conservative approach and a risk approach. Here's what could be ahead. I think that rate raises are ahead. At the time of this recording, it's Thursday, November 3rd. Yesterday, the Fed just announced another 75 basis point rate hike. So the consensus is probably going to do another one in December, and then maybe slow down in January, but still do another rate hike in January, tapering off to midsummer. This is what I'm hearing the Wall Street money betting. This is what I'm hearing bankers talking who are in this industry day in, day out. This is what they're thinking. And this isn't my original thought. This is just me kind of copying smarter people than I. But here's where I want you to think down the road. Clear your mind of the fear. Clear your mind of the hysteria. And think about when the Fed announces that they're not going to raise rates this month. Think about when the Fed announces that they're not going to raise rates and they're actually considering a cut. Think about them cutting by 25 basis points. Think about them cutting by 50 basis points. Think about the rates coming down. Think about the mass euphoria in all the markets, stocks, crypto, real estate, everybody going crazy because the good times are back. And when that happens, it's too late. That ship has sailed. If you did not buy prior to that happening, now you're in the middle of a feeding frenzy, right? Prices are going to be being bid back up. Rates are coming down. Multifamily is getting more expensive. Commercial real estate is getting more expensive. People are feeling much, much better. Sellers are going to get more stubborn. They're going to be holding on to their properties. You got to buy when people are scared. And the thing is you can't be. It's such an easy and trite saying, buy when there's blood in the streets, and you make money, like be greedy when others are fearful. Others are fearful right now. Consider that. Think about that. And when others aren't fearful, that's when you're not going to be fearful, and that's when it's going to be too late. Okay? So position yourself right now, because we could be literally 6 to 8 months away from a completely different narrative, which I think is probably the most likely scenario is mid to late summer 2023, we start easing off of this rate hike stuff and start going the other way. We start pivoting. And when we do, the markets are going to respond. And if you've already locked yourself into a great deal, you're going to ride that wave, and you're going to be really glad that you're positioned that way. So the conservative approach, guys, is find stuff that cash flows today with the debt that either you can get new debt and it still works with a 7-8% rate, or you can assume something that still works, and you're paying a price where you can cover your costs and cover your debt in a safe manner. right? And the conservative way is to only do stuff that you can lock in for 5, 7, 10, 12 years. The longer the term, the better, as long as there's not a massive prepayment penalty. So for this example, I'm going to say go with a local bank, get yourself a nice 5, 6, 7 year term that doesn't have a prepayment penalty, buy it. Because if the rates come back down in 2023 and they really come down in 2024, boom, you refinance that baby. Price is forever. Rates are temporary. Rates are high right now. That's temporary. If you pay a high price, that's forever. So get the best price you can and then refinance it. Refinance it in the future, because the rents, I don't believe, are going to come down consequentially. They may flatten off. They may drop in certain markets, like super, super hot markets like Austin or California, wherever, where rental rates have just been crazy. But for the most part in the US, rental rates are going to pretty much stubbornly stay where they are. And if you don't believe me, look at the Fred chart of the last historical data, the last 70 years of multifamily rent prices. Look at the chart. It's straight up. 2007, 8, 9, 10, it flattens out. The worst economic period in the last 50 years, and then it keeps on going straight up. So don't tell me that rental rates are going to plummet. It's just not true. There's not enough housing in the US. That will not happen. So that's the conservative approach, is continue to buy, but only buy where you're giving yourself time to get out. Get out being sell it, or get out being refinance it. Don't get into a bridge situation. This is the more risky approach. Let's say you see a great deal, but it's a value add deal. It's half full or it's 60% full. It needs a lot of renovations and it doesn't qualify for a regular 5, 6, 7 year loan. No bank will lend on it. And you have to go bridge debt. You have to go with these New York hedge funds or these private money people who are only going to loan you the money for 18 months or a year, 2 years, and that is where you get jammed up. Because imagine if I'm wrong, which I very well could be. But if I'm wrong, come June, July, August, let's say we can't get a handle on inflation. Let's say inflation is being stubborn and we're settling into stagflation and they continue to raise the rates up to 8, 9, 10, and you have a bridge loan maturing and you have to refinance. You're going to be in major, major trouble because your underwriting was written at 7% rates. And you don't have the cash flow to cover the new debt. And all the banks see that. And they don't want to loan you the money because they're all scared. And now you're stuck in a loan that's maturing, just like Jackson in the beginning of this story. And you know what happens? You lose the property, you get foreclosed on, you lose your money, you lose your investors' money, and nobody wants that to happen. So don't take that risk approach of getting into this short-term debt in this environment unless you're very, very experienced. It's a slam dunk home run deal. You already have thousands of units under your belt and you know exactly what you're doing. You have a lot of cash to bankroll some rocky seas because you can definitely make money in those situations. And they're going to be on sale. Distressed properties are always on sale, and they're going to really be on sale in these uncertain times because everyone's thinking like I'm thinking. At least the smart people that have been in this industry a while, they're not taking on the short-term stuff because there's just too much uncertainty out there. So this is what I got for you today, guys. I think the rates are going to keep going up for the foreseeable future, being 2 to 3 months. And then I think we're going to taper off in the summer, possibly getting some relief towards the end of 2023. And the best way to position yourself for that is to keep on buying, keep making offers. Maybe don't even participate in the new debt markets. You can do an assumption loan. You can do seller financing. You can do seller carryback. You can get a higher rate loan, but a long-term fixed mortgage with a local bank that you can refinance in a year or two. And if it makes sense at 7 or 8%, it's really going to make sense when you refinance it at 5%. This is what you got to think, because this stuff always comes in waves. There's troughs and there's mountains and there's troughs. There's highs and there's lows. We're in the low. There's going to be the next high. How can you position yourself to be ready to win on the next mountaintop? So guys, I'm going to leave it there. Appreciate you tuning in. Appreciate you listening to it. if you like my podcast, drop me a 5-star review. It means a lot. I read every single one of them on iTunes or wherever platform you're listening to. If this stuff is resonating with you, shoot me a DM. I respond to my DMs. I like connecting with people. And if you want to get serious about investing, you can connect with me at Jennings Smith Jr., JenningsSmithJR.com. All my podcast episodes are there. My multifamily Facebook group, My First Million in Multifamily, the Deal Room, how do you get involved in my mentoring program, the Deal Room, that's all in there at JenningsSmithJR.com. All right, guys, have a great week. Don't forget to unlock your life. Peace.
This is thepodcastfactory.com.